Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure and honor to introduce Mr. Jamey Garner. He is a professional vocalist, songwriter, actor, harmonica player, very versatile. He most recently toured the US, Canada, and Europe with his band, High South. And he landed a lot of record deals as well with Universal Music Group. You have been also Off-Broadway and the acclaim and multiple award
Our Sinatra.
right?
Right.
And he is also a featured soloist with the Trans Siberian Orchestra, has appeared in numerous television shows in America and Europe. So it is a great honor to have him here. Before we move on to the actual session, I wanted to remind people from Kent State, if you haven't signed up, please do so at the end as you exit the session, okay? So without further ado, welcome, Jamey, and
Thanks a lot
for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Good morning. All right, cool. You guys are awake. Is this the first session you've been in this morning, or have you been to others? Some of you the first. Okay, cool. Well, before I start, I want to say thank you to Ricardo and Dean Petrella and Nick Petrella and Kent State University for having me here today. Art Without Limits, great title. And we're going to be talking today primarily about the music industry, which is where I've spent the last 30 plus years. And as Ricardo mentioned in his introduction, starting in musical theater. I was even on one of the television, what would you call it, music competitions. It wasn't American Idol. This was a show called Nashville Star. It was country music's sort of answer to American Idol for country music listeners. I was on that show with anyone ever heard of Miranda Lambert? All right, she and I were on the show together. She's gone on to do wonderful things. Maybe she should be here today giving the speeches. But I have small town roots, very humble beginnings. I'm from Southern Illinois, beautiful sort of idyllic place, great place to grow up. But at the time when I was a young kid, your age or younger, there was just really no opportunity. We had a choir in grade school and high school, and we had a band. I played saxophone in the band, and I sang in the choir, and I sang in church, which I think I've come to find out over the years. That's where a lot of people have those same sort of beginnings, but there wasn't a lot of opportunity there. And I am not a trained musician. I do read music. As I mentioned, I started on saxophone, and I do play guitar. I'm a mean harmonica player, but I'm not a trained musician, as Mr. Brett Peppo and Dean Petrella can attest to. We went to the same university in Illinois many, many moons ago. So they know that my story is everything I've learned on the job, shooting from the hip, observing people that I admired, which I would encourage you all to start doing that, even though you're ahead of my game already. You're already getting an education in music or in the arts of some sort. So at least your head's on straight, and you're here today, which is a good indicator that you're thirsty for some knowledge. So I'm hoping to give you some knowledge today, and I'm hoping that I can save you some time, because I wasn't trained and I really had no one to tell me what to do. I had to follow the paths that I thought would get me to my destination. Sometimes those roads were profitable and fruitful, and sometimes they were major roadblocks that cost me sometimes years of sort of being shelved or waiting in the wings for the opportunities to be able to present themselves. And I'll talk a little bit more of that in a few moments. As Ricardo mentioned, I toured with the Trans Siberian Orchestra. In fact, I'm pretty sure we played in Cleveland, I think. When you tour arenas, it's very exciting at first, because you're like, wow, I'm standing in front of 15 and 20,000 people a night in an arena. This is my dream come true. But then after about 5 of those arenas, you start to find out that they're all just one big concrete building, and they all look the same. So it sort of loses its luster to a degree. But I guess my point is, I don't know what towns I was in. I never got to see those towns. I only saw backstage, catering, dressing room, and a room full of shadows. So, so I'm not sure if I was in Cleveland, but I'm almost sure I was in Cleveland. So maybe you've seen the Trans Siberian Orchestra. If you haven't, you should check it out. We'll be coming up again shortly in the next couple of months. I moved on from the Trans Siberian Orchestra, where I understudied one of the lead roles for a year. And then I went out on tour. I performed that role, and then the person that I had understudied came back to the production, and I understudied him again. If you've, by the way, little interjection here, if you're into theater, anybody here in theater or? Awesome. All right. Right on. Musical theater. Also, any musical theater folks here too? Okay, great. Cool. Have you ever understudied a role? You have. So you know it's like the worst, right? You're doing it right now. Cool. So tell me about that, because you don't, well, let me start and then you can interject, okay? To me, it was almost thankless, but I got paid really well, so it was worth it. But, you know, you have to learn your role, and then you may not ever get to do it. But you have to be ready 30 minutes before the show to go on and perform that role flawlessly. Has that been your experience as well? Right. So don't back. So I still have these dreams. In fact, I had one before I came here where I am standing off stage about to walk on, and I have no idea what I'm supposed to say or what I'm supposed to sing. It's the worst nightmare ever, feeling that you may be unprepared. So if you ever are in that position, right, take it from she and I, make sure you're prepared. All right, that was a little side note. After Trans Siberian Orchestra, I moved on. I started my own band, a band called High South, 4-part harmony group, rock and roll band actually. A little reminiscent of the 1970s. Anybody here ever heard of a band called the Eagles? Okay, or Crosby, Stills, Nash? Being Kent State University students, you should all know who Crosby, Stills, and Nash is. And Young, of course. I believe Neil Young wrote that song. But that little homework for you to go and check out some history about your university. We have a very similar sound. So we were signed to Universal, signed by Lucien Grange, who is the president of Universal Music Group worldwide. He asked our producer which label we would like to be placed on in Europe, because our producer was from Europe. He chose Decca UK, and we subsequently made our first record in London at a very famous studio called British Grove. The week before we recorded our first record, Mumford & Son, anybody heard of them? Recorded their record there. The week after us were the Killers, and we were poised we thought for greatness. But really, what it was the beginning of a long journey in the music business. We had no idea what to expect. None of us had ever been signed to a record label before. So, as I stated at the beginning, you know, there were pitfalls and there were roads that we went down that I would like to save you the time and the heartache at times of pursuing maybe the wrong path. So that's on my docket to impart a little bit of knowledge to you guys. Sometimes record labels aren't the only way to go. We'll talk about that later. After we were actually shelved at Decca UK. They gave us about $250,000 to make our record, to record our first music video, and which at the time our producer said, boys, just so you know, this may be one of the last record deals of its kind for a new act to spend that kind of money. If you know anything about how much records cost to make today, as opposed to 2010 when we started making our first record, it's drastically gone down. If you get $50,000 to make a record, you're doing pretty good. And so we had all of this money and all of this energy that we thought from the label that was going to be spent on us. And another band out of Colorado blew up all of a sudden with a song called Hey Ho. Do you guys remember that song? What was the name? The Lumineers? Lumineers. The Lumineers were signed to the same record label we were. All of a sudden, they got all of our attention, and subsequently, our record was placed on the shelf. Fortunately for us, Decca had invited all of Universal Music Group from across most of Europe, mostly German-speaking countries, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, the Netherlands, all into London for a label showcase, and they all dug what we were doing, and they licensed us to be able to go tour, and they released our record in all of those countries, and we ended up charting with our first record. Our album went to top 10 in Germany and also in Austria. And at the same time, our mother company had put us on the shelf. So things you don't expect to happen to you that just do not make sense will happen. So just prepare yourself for it, and don't take it too much to heart. Just kind of expect things like this to happen. There will always be great things that happen, but you're gonna have to take the good with the bad. So this is a tough business. You gotta have a thick skin. Sometimes I have a thick skin, sometimes I don't, and it's tough. But prepare yourself for that, because there's gonna be a lot of rejection. I'm sure people already tell you that. Get ready for the rejection. I don't want to be a bummer here, right? I don't want to talk you out of getting into this, because this is a noble pursuit. This is a beautiful pursuit that you can bring a lot of beauty and joy into the world and into your own world and the people around you. So I want to encourage you to pursue this, because it's a super great. I've had the most incredible life experiences in this career, even with some of the rejection and the bad things that have come along with it. But I'll talk a little bit more about that later. I've also had my band has had 2 independent deals. So later in our talk, I'm going to sort of do a little comparison and contrast with the difference between major record deals and independent deals, what you can expect, what they expect from you, and there's a lot of knowledge there that I'm going to get to. So I'm just sort of giving you a brief overview of what we're going to talk about. Any songwriters here? Really? All right. You're writing songs? How many songs have you written so far? Yeah. Probably 40 songs. Fantastic. And somebody else raised their hand? Who else is a songwriter? Yeah, man. How many songs have you written so far? You? Yeah. All right. Well, okay, that's great. We're going to talk a lot about songwriting, because in today's industry, I just don't believe that you can have a career in the recording industry without being a songwriter also. Didn't used to be that way. Didn't used to be that way at all. In the old days, there were songwriters and there were singers or artists, and they would pitch their songs to the artist, they would release them, and but that's not so much the way it goes these days. In fact, if you're looking for a record deal, if you're not writing songs, you won't get a record deal. Just know that. That's a fact. So I'm a published songwriter. I've had publishing deals. As you mentioned, my band has been on a lot of TV shows throughout Europe, even in the States. We've been in Rolling Stone magazine 3 times. So I've experienced a lot of the different kinds of things that come along in the music business. So I'm going to try to break as much of that down for you today as I can. And I want to ask you, I'm going to make a deal with you. I want you to, yes, raise your hand if you have a question. Yeah. Yeah. How to find inspiration? Sure, I had planned on talking about this a little later, but hey, let's just jump on into it. If you're a beginning songwriter, even if you have written 40 songs, have you done any co-writing, or are you writing all by yourself?
I've done some co-writing.
Some co-writing with Great. And you as well? You're co-writing with friends? All right. Do you play instruments? What do you play? All right. So you understand music. Great. Any instruments? All right. Great. As long, that's the best. I mean, if you're going to have a working knowledge of an instrument that's going to help you write songs, piano is a great one to start with because it's all there, right? All, you know, you can get it all right there. I'm primarily a lyricist because I'm a singer first and foremost, and a harmonica player. I play guitar as well. I'm a rhythm player. In my business, we call what I do cowboy chords, which means very basic major chords primarily, using a capo. That's not my strong suit. So how does that affect the way I write songs? It has thwarted me to a degree because I don't have in my hands the knowledge to come up with an interesting version of an A chord. You know, mine is pretty basic. So I've developed my lyric prowess. So I am a lyricist. That's what I come up with primarily. Always with those lyrics come something resembling a melody. You know, as playing a lead instrument on harmonica and being a singer, melody comes to me quickly. So I'll sit down with another songwriter and sort of they'll help me translate that, and you know, we'll collaborate. And that's the word that I wanted to throw out to you as far as how do you inspiration. Sometimes it's you know, it's not all on you. So do a lot of collaborating. There's a lot of benefits to collaborating. Not only do you get to help one another come up with good ideas and shoot those ideas off of one another, but also you start to form a network because the people that you're writing songs with are probably writing songs with people or writing songs with producers, with other artists, or for, you know, publishing company perhaps. And all of those people start to build your network. And this business, I assume most businesses are like this. I've never been in any business but the music business, so I can only speak to that. But this business is built on relationships. So don't be a jerk, ever. Don't be a diva, guys and girls. Nobody likes that. Nothing will get you shunned more quickly than coming in with a bad attitude or thinking, hey, I'm fantastic, right? Nobody likes that. So always come in with a great attitude. That would be the first thing. I would say, to go back to your inspiration thing, you know, I listen to a lot of music. I watch, much to my wife's chagrin, I watch a lot of movies. I've even heard of songwriters going to the grocery store and going to the greeting card aisle and just reading greeting cards to looking for hooks, right? Looking for ideas. I've never done that, but I've been so uninspired at times that I've been tempted. And this is cyclical and sort of comes in waves. You know, some writers, especially in Nashville, where I've lived in Nashville 3 times, and been pretty active in the songwriting community there as much as I could. Had the great fortune with my band High South to write with multi-award-winning songwriters, Grammy winners, ACM winners, CMA winners. We recently wrote with a gentleman who wrote a couple of Broadway shows. So we, you know, we've had some good fortune. And one of the things I've learned in those circles is to always show up prepared. Ricardo and I were just talking about this before this talk today. And it was about, you know, when I first showed up at Nashville, I had just come off of this major television show that was every Tuesday or Thursday or whatever it was with millions of viewers, you know, and it was an exciting time because no matter where I was in the country, I'd go into a restaurant and somebody would recognize me. It was weird. I signed with the William Morris Agency, and I signed with a management company out of Los Angeles, a big management company who handled Michael Jackson and Mariah Carey, Dolly Parton, Neil Diamond, Miley Cyrus and Billy Ray Cyrus, all of these people were on their roster. And so doors were opening for me in the songwriting community in Nashville. And so I was able to write with, I was punching way over my weight class. And I was certainly intimidated, and I allowed that intimidation to keep me ill-prepared. And I would show up to a songwriting session, and this guy who had just written a #1 hit for whomever in Nashville, right, multiple hit writer, would say, hey man, come on, you know, it's the South, right? Hey man, come on in. Talk about fishing for a while, typically, and then he'd say, well, you got any ideas? Pull up his guitar. Say, no, I don't really. And if I did, I was embarrassed because I didn't think they were good enough. Biggest mistake ever. One of the biggest mistakes I've ever made in this line of work was not just throwing out ideas, not being prepared. I said earlier, this is a business of relationships. So if you do that sort of thing too many times, nothing spreads quicker than bad news, right? Especially when people are expecting something out of you. And they were expecting something out of me. And I was ill-prepared. And I think that circulated a little bit that, well, we love the way he sings, we love his performance, we love the way he plays, but we're not really sure he knows who he is. I'm going to write that down, actually. Who? Oh, come on. It's invisible ink. Yeah. This question really upset me because I didn't understand it. One of the A&R executives at Sony sort of took me under her wing and was very, very helpful and helped guide me. You need those people, by the way. Learn to realize and accept and be open to people offering you advice when they truly want to help, and take that to heart. And she offered me, she was trying to tell me that I hadn't spent enough time as an artist understanding who I was, what I had to say to the world, what was my message, what made me unique, special. You might be sitting there thinking, well, I don't really even know if I am unique or special. We're all unique and special, every one of us, whether you write songs or not, whether you sing or not, whether you're a mechanic or a doctor or whatever, every one of us are special. We have something to say. We just have to spend a little time, and I would encourage you all, for you songwriters and hopeful artists out there, to spend some time figuring out who you are. This isn't something you can ask your parents or your teacher or your pastor or your friends. This is an introspective thing, and it's difficult because sometimes, you know, you in my case, when this A&R executive said, Jamey, we're not sure you know who you are, it pissed me off because I thought, what do you mean? I know who I am. I'm me, right? They didn't, you know, but I hadn't really dug in, and that was a big misstep on my. I had no one to tell me these things. I was figuring out as I went. So in my defense, I didn't have someone here for me like I am for you today. So if someone had told me that, I could have shown up to Nashville, perhaps, with a little bit more ammunition, because I would have had a better sense of who I am. And I think if you leave here with anything today, I think that is one of the two most important things you need to figure out. Who I am. Spend some time alone. Ask yourself, what is my message to the world? What do I want to say? Write it down. Figure out who you are. So, who am I? That's number one. We jumped ahead a little bit. My second one was, you have to write great songs. So back in the old days, there used to be a thing called Tin Pan Alley in New York City, where it was literally, I think it was in a place called the Brill Building, where famous songwriters, the best, were all in a building in little cubicles with a piano and or a guitar, 2 or 3 of them at a time, maybe just one, all collaborating on songs that they were writing to pitch to artists. Now that still happens today, not so much. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Money is one. Songwriters have figured out that you can make some money with your publishing, with your songwriting royalties. If you write a song and it gets placed on a commercial, or if you write a song that gets used, all of a sudden it's getting used in at baseball games in parks around the country, big money. That can be big money. So these artists have figured out that you have to do that. And the labels have figured out that they want their artists to write as well. Why? Because they want them to know who they are. They want these artists to have an identity, an image, understand what they have to say. It's really hard to market somebody that you don't know anything about. Why? Because the artist doesn't know what they're about. I mean, you know, the A&R team, if they really think you're a fantastic singer, maybe could sign you and dress you and find songs for you and make a great record on you and throw you up on the wall like a piece of spaghetti and see if you stick. 9.9 times out of 10, that doesn't ever happen. Just doesn't happen. So you got to write good songs. So back to that, to recap, I'm going to write that down in case you're writing things down, taking some notes. Great songs. And you're not going to write great songs at the beginning. They're going to be real bad. For most of us, they're going to be real bad. So, but you got to just keep writing them, collaborating, finding other people to write with, writing up, as they say in the business, finding writers that are much better than you, that will agree to write with you and bring you along. And you learn on the job, as I did. There's another great a tool that I would recommend to you. There's an organization called the Nashville Songwriters Association International. It's an international group. They have chapters in almost every city in the United States. Before I came here today, I looked up to see if there was one in your area, and there is one in Cleveland. It's called, for short, NSAI. And what that organization does is you go in with your songs. They generally bring in a very successful songwriter, occasionally to do a seminar like I'm doing here today, to share their knowledge of how they write songs. And then they will critique your songs, help bring you along. They will help you collaborate with other great songwriters. If you're showing promise and they think you've got something to say, that you have a future in this, a lot of times they will make phone calls for you and connect some dots, which is invaluable, because those are people that you may not be able to reach on your own. So I would check that out. NSAI, I'm going to write that down too. Really good one. In Cleveland. Now I'd like to sort of illustrate this with an artist that I found online recently. Anybody ever heard of a guy named Oliver Anthony? You have. One person, okay. Well, this is testament to how much clutter and noise is in the music business today. You know, there was a time when there just wasn't readily available for anyone, just anyone, to get into the music business or the recording industry. It was very expensive. It can still be very expensive, but due to the internet, and you guys are so much younger than me, most of us, right? Most of you. You probably know this way better than I do, but you can make a record at home in your bedroom, right? You can distribute that record online and have it up on all the major streaming platforms on your own. You can market to an audience on your own using social networking, etc. You can find venues. You can book venues. You can literally be your own record label by yourself today. And the good news is, make a living. You know, at the end of the day, we got to eat, right? Got to make some money, got to pay some bills. So, to jump ahead just a bit, sometimes record deals aren't the way to go. And I will say this, they are definitely not the way to go until you've done it yourself. They're not going to bring you in until you've done it yourself. They want to see the numbers. They want to see the data. They want to be able to look at Spotify and see that there's a buzz, that your numbers are growing. There are regions in the country that are hot on your music, that you're moving product. All of those, they basically want to know that you are already successful. No longer are they plucking someone out of obscurity, out of a coffee shop, like James Taylor or something, who just can sit there with a guitar and, you know, destroy you with a song. Just doesn't happen anymore. Almost. Oliver Anthony, a guy with no record label, no management, no agent, no high-powered music attorney, nothing. Just a guitar and a guy who knows who the heck he is. Wrote a song called Richmond North of Richmond. So you should check that song out just to be able to put this all together for yourself. Oliver Anthony. So Oliver Anthony was just putting out his song, literally recording his songs in his backyard and placing them on his YouTube page. He resonated with people because he knew who he was or is. He knows who he is. And he writes a lot of songs, clearly, because no one writes songs like that who isn't already, you know, these are great, these are pro songs. These are great songs this guy is writing. You don't just jump from I've never written songs before to writing these kinds of songs. So this guy's been working at home, recording them acoustically in his backyard, and he's got 8.1 million monthly listeners on Spotify every month. He's the first artist in history. Now this guy's a country boy from Virginia, right? First artist in history to ever chart #1 without any charting history ever before. He never even made an appearance on a chart. What are some of the other statistics about him? Because it's pretty amazing. Oh, #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 for 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks. I stopped checking before I came here. He may still be at #1, I'm not sure. So all those artists that you know, household names, with major record deals, millions of dollars, they were mega international stars. The push, the marketing, the PR, the campaign, all of that. The great songwriters, recording with the best beat makers, the best producers in the world. This guy beat them out. So, can you make a living in the music business today without all of that infrastructure? Yes, you can. And that is the good news. So, I hope that will, I said earlier, I don't want to discourage you, I want to encourage you. And so I hope that is encouraging. Beware, that sort of meteoric success won't happen for the vast majority of us. But you can make a living in this business. And you can eventually find yourself in the position where you have a major record label or a fantastic independent record label who's willing to put the time and the effort and the money behind what you do. But they won't do it unless you know who you are and what you have to say. What is the one thing that Oliver Anthony had going for him? He knew, and that's what he wrote about. You can't resonate with an audience. You can't make someone feel anything, in my opinion, if you're not speaking from here, speaking truth, right? Our first record, High South's first record on Decca, we part of the deal was that we would release an album with a certain amount of hit songs that had been #1 hits in the States, and we would supplement the rest of those songs on that album on our own. We wrote some good songs. Did we write some great songs? I'm not so sure we wrote some great songs. And I have a real strong suspicion that that is, at the end of the day, why the Lumineers were able to come and sneak in under the fence, steal our ammunition, you know, and we ended up on the shelf. Our manager is a very smart guy. We call him Guru Dave. He practices the Hindu religion, and he has a guru. And his guru, we all know that, you ever heard the term Guru Dev, D-E-V? Well, that's what the actual term for it was. But in his German brogue, you know, he said, my Guru Dave. We thought he was talking about some guru named Dave. So he became we thought that was funny when he finally explained it to us, but he has been not just a spiritual sort of advisor for us, an encourager and someone who has our back, but he's really very intelligent about the music business and a very successful songwriter in his own right. And on our second record, he said to us, boys, well, we showed up. Let me go back. We showed up to Switzerland. We were licensed through UMG. They picked us up. We were supposed to do touring there. We flew over from the States into Zurich. We show up at the record label, and they had never booked one show for our tour. We thought we had a roster of tours. We had dates on our calendar. They never booked them. So there we were, spending our own money now in Europe, our own money on hotels. Got really expensive, our own money on meals, transportation, all of that jazz. So our manager, being the smart guy that he is, said, you need to go sit in your hotel room and you need to write some songs. We've got 7 days and get creative. You know, this could be the end for you guys. So that's what we did. We got a lot of coffee and we holed up in a little Gasthof in Innsbruck, Austria, which is a little like farm community, mom and pop hotel. Not a lot of noise, except for the church bells ringing, which just seems to be every 15 minutes there. And we wrote about 7 songs. We wrote a song and a half a day, so maybe a little bit more than that. We ended up going to what we thought would be our last gig, which was for about this many people. And we were super depressed. Super depressed. This was the end of High South as far as we knew. And so our manager, being the smart guy he is, called up Universal Switzerland, spoke to the president of the label, who happened to live just a few miles down the road from this small little venue we were playing, talked him into coming. He heard us write songs that he'd never heard or didn't believe even that we could write. I didn't even believe we could write these songs, but we made a decision that we were going to write songs that meant something to people, that was going to resonate with them, that was going to make them want to know more about us, that was going to make them happy. And aside, my band, we write a lot of songs about peace and love, harmony, inclusion, people coming together. Turns out those kind of things are that people all want to hear, that every one of us are feeling to some degree. And it resonated. And it resonated with the president of that label that day. And that night, he signed us to a brand new record label with the record label that had just dropped us. So we were dropped by Universal. 6 weeks later, we were picked up by Universal again, all on the merit of 7 songs that we wrote over the course of a week. Changed the trajectory for us. So that's how important knowing who you are and what you have to say is. So those are the two major things, actually, that I want to leave you with today. Your music's got to be great, and you got to know who you are. All right. The other thing is, get your butts on stage. I was glad to hear at the beginning that so many of you were already doing that, because you're going to find out so much about yourself and about how it's done, how the soup is made, right? Whether it's theater or the recording industry or whatever your area is in the music business, getting out there and doing it, getting on stage is the best way to learn. It's also good to have some training. I had almost none, so I learned it all on the job. And that, I think, added years to my journey. But so you're all ahead of the game already. So keep that up. Get on stage. Get in front of people. Put your songs out there on stage. I mean, you may think you have a great song. You get on stage in front of a room full of people, and you start performing that song. All of a sudden, you don't even need to like wait for the applause to know if that song sucks or not. You can feel it. You can feel it. You're like, oh, this chorus is just not, there's no lift here. This doesn't ring the way I had thought it did on my back porch. So get them out there, stumble and fall, go back and rewrite those songs and become better writers. Talking a lot about that today, actually. I guess that's how important I think it is. So get on stage, start small. I would recommend at your age, at your ages, to start small. You know, don't think too big yet. Dream big. You probably can't even fathom how big you should be dreaming. Dream bigger than you think you should. But start small. Start in your communities. Start surrounding yourself with other artists who are putting music out there like you're putting out there. Team up with those people. Do a show together. Start creating a little buzz in your community and let that spread out to your region. Take over northeastern or northwestern Ohio. You know, that's going to take you a handful of years with hard work, diligence, right? But you start to create these little pockets one by one, and it spreads. That's how I think the most effective way to begin doing that. How are we doing on time? We're doing pretty good. To begin doing that with your music. Yes, was there a question? You had a question earlier, I think, did you? Okay, all right. If you remember what it is, shout it out. So we live in a streaming world, right? We used to sell product from the beginning of recording industry time. We used to have a product to sell, like a physical product. Started with paper rolls on pianos that played themselves, and then it moved to sheet music, and to vinyl, and then to 8-tracks and cassettes, CDs, and now we have no product to sell. All of you probably get your music for free or close to it. You know, you can go on any streaming platform and listen to the history of recorded music today for basically free. So what does that do to the artist? What does that do to you as a songwriter, an artist who's trying to make a living, putting out, seems a little unfair, right? All of a sudden there's no product to sell. I mean, try making a living off of streaming. Even at 8.1 million monthly listeners a month. You know, do you guys know how streaming, how you get paid out of streaming? I mean, yeah. Yes, that's correct. It's an easy way to think of this is, let's say, let's break it down to a really small number that's easy to sort of understand. Let's say Spotify brings in $10,000, or there's 10,000 plays, streams of music over the course of a month. So you got this pot of money that has come in that they have to distribute to all of the artists platform-wide, right? And as I mentioned earlier, that's 60,000 songs plus every day being uploaded. It's very daunting. So you got 10,000. Let's say you're really killing it. You have 1,000 streams out of those 10,000. Well, you would get paid the 1,000, and the rest would get however that breaks down, however many streams they got, right? For the first time ever, all of a sudden, what I get paid means you get paid less, or you get paid more, and I make less. Your sales have to do with my sales. It wasn't really that way in the beginning. People might go into a record store and buy a couple of records, a couple of CDs. Even if they never listen to those CDs again, they spent their $10 or $15 or $20 on that product. The artist was happy, even if they never heard that record again, because they already made their money. But now it's all about streaming. So you can't rely on streaming until you're really pushing big numbers. We getting there? All right. I'm gonna close with just listing some of the streaming avenues you should be taking a look at, okay? Where can I make money? Merchandise sales. Get your merch out there. Have a table. Take a break during your show. Go to your merch table. Meet your people. Meet your crowd. They will buy something. That will help you. Let me see. Sponsorships, that's going to come later. Once you get like 10,000 people following you or more on your social networks, you're going to be able to start reaching out to people for sponsorships. If you that's a Gatorade, maybe that whatever that is, you start reaching out to those people. They may be able to give you money to help you promote and at the same time promote themselves. I didn't get to talk about record deals. I'm very sorry, but what I will tell you is that they won't sign you until you've done the work yourself. And then they're going to want a piece of the whole pie. Today it's all about 360 deals, which means 360 degrees. I want a piece of your merch. I want a piece of your touring. I want a piece of your publishing. I want a piece of everything. So you can see how it starts to whittle away. You might have yes, sir. Sure. Sure, what it used to be is you would own your own publishing, hopefully. You would at least own your songwriting, which is still usually the case. But they didn't take a piece of your touring. That was all you. You would go out on the road, promote your record, but all of that money you would make from fees, people coming to see you live, went into your pocket. Now you're doing this. At the end of the day, let me tell you, it's a light pocket. So keep it small and build it organically. That is the way to go. And keep those revenue streams going into your pocket as long as you can. I've had a wonderful time today. I just hope you guys have the most success ever. And work your butts off, because you're going to have to, okay? Thanks a lot.
Thank you again for being here.